If you would like to touch the steamer, there's my steamer. Oh, there it is. Still plugged in. Still full of water. Just need to turn it on. Hmm. So today, do edits on the book. We got the stuff back from Mom and White Woman Whisperer, both of whom said they loved it. So phew. Uh, but oh, I have to look at my email. I hate email so much. It's like my least favorite thing. And then I'm gonna try this. Account is in the affiliate program, but then I can just pin my own books from the other account. One of my evil plans. Good morning, Minnesota. Which one my stepfather's from. Gonna be in New York City next Wednesday. Links in the bios of the other accounts because I can't have a link here yet. Necklaces I made yesterday. I don't know if this one is pretty or ugly yet. I haven't decided. Need to stretch it out a little bit more. The girls stayed pretty, so knitting cult baby had a gold over middle of the week sleepover. And of course it's also a holiday, which I keep forgetting. Um, happy Juneteenth. I apologize on behalf of white people for being generally terrible in this country for about 400 years. Some of us are trying to do better. Oh, last night we had Cult Book Club. We had very good conversations about lying and weaponized secrecy in cults. And sometimes when we get out of cults because we don't know how to be. Mr. Knitting Cult Lady just texted and said he found a place to wrap the RV for our summer trip. All right. So at the very end of July, when youngest knitting cult sibling goes home, we are going to load up the Knitting Cult Lady RV, and it is literally going to be wrapped in Knitting Cult Lady coming soon, Culting of America. But none of y'all will get to see that cover till August 5th. But I think we're going to show it to the Canadians and some New Yorkers. Anyway, we're going to drive from DC up to Canada, and we're going to drive across Canada to Vancouver, and then we're going to drive down the Pacific coast, and we're going to spend like a week in Seattle, which is where we used to be from. There are people who used to know. So yeah, and then we're really probably going to try to go to Portland and see Park Rose permaculture, which I think is funny because people like our content for the political stuff, but I'm like, it's just gonna be these two gardeners nerding out together the whole time while I'm just sitting there making jewelry, probably. So it's my newest obsession is just making you know, necklaces out of junk. Not even junk, like this one here was a very nice Kenyan jade that Mr. Knitting Cult Lady brought me, but I don't know if I love it or hate it yet, but I think it's gonna be love. I just have to get used to it. Yep, new account. Number 10, everything. I have 3 active, all of which I can't and all of which like the other 2 are not yet monetized, and I'm trying to and not yet. They're different levels of demonetized, but I'm like, okay, maybe I just have 3 different accounts. And like, I can't go live on the other one right now, but I can go live on this one. Anyway, and then I have my YouTube peeps who are just very steady because it's a much more steady platform. Just forget to turn on the comments. I love how I call him Mr. Knitting Cult Lady too. And I always used to say this when I was studying, in the cult of entrepreneurship, where I was like, when you get the naming convention, when it starts being called the iPod and not the MP3 player, like you're good. And as soon as when I first got online, my first version was called Group Behavior Gal. It worked pretty well. It's like that's still my social contract. That's what we're gonna talk about. Um, and then that one got banned, the first account after I spent a year building it, then it got banned. So then I came back and I just called myself Knitting Cult Lady because that's what all of y'all called me. And then it was like, boom, it fit. And then he was Mr. Knitting Cult Lady. And before I'd call him Mr. Young, but then it was like you would have had to have read the book, and then it's cute. But Mr. Knitting Cult Lady is perfect and he loves it. And then we have knitting called baby, and then we have knitted called puppy, and then we have, knitting called chat, and it just we're gonna have knitting called van, knitting called happy hours Wednesday in New York City. Hopefully, White Women Whisperer will come, and maybe we'll do a little thing, and maybe we'll even read you all a preview of her portion of Culting of America. Yes, love. Make what? Yeah. Some knitted thing that she thinks is cool. She wouldn't wear it. Okay, girls, remember your spy names, okay? You heard? B, remember your spy names, okay? I don't know if I don't know if your friend knows. I almost forgot the spy names. All right, I think I like it. I've been waiting to do these longer ones on a necklace. And I was like, it was giving too much Mardi Gras. So I had to weigh out the purple with more green and yellow. And it's also hard when you make these screw necklaces, like have a direction. Are the ones. I mean, I wouldn't sell this one anyway because this necklace is special to me. But anyway, so because I started just making the collars because I was trying to deal with the fact that there's nothing Mexican about me except that I lived in Mexico for some very formative years of my life, 14 and 15. Plus, for 12 years, I thought one dude was my dad and that dude was Mexican. So, anyway, was making them from scratch, and then you have to like put jewelry fastenings on the ends. And then I was like, okay, I can just buy broken jewelry, and buying junk jewelry is fun. It's like a treasure hunt, blah, blah, blah. But then I realized I could just make an already statement necklace more statementy. Like this was just a broken piece, and then I put this all together. But this was just like, oh, I can make statement necklaces more statementy, and now basically all of my necklaces have come into play. uh, fun, 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 fun. So I just try to them and get them to lay flat. 'Cause otherwise they stand up a little bit like pet collars sometimes when you first make them. So I don't know. What do we think about this one? Certain look, I guess. Some point I'll get them all into my shop. Actually, the hard part is having like YouTube, which I do through Shopify, and TikTok, which has its own shop, because then it's like I've accidentally sold this one thing twice, and then I had to be like, I'm sorry. Um, I would say that Masonic fraternity, I'm sure it's a cult. It's very hard to hear stories about them. I don't have much there. Why did I grab this? I feel like I figured out why. Can you go live on Instagram from a computer? I don't know. Let's find out. Don't think you can. Do I use patterns for my knitting? Like sometimes I used to for sure, but then now, like most of the stuff I make, I just make it up or I'm adding things to clothes or I'm doing different things. So I've made my own knitting patterns book, multi knitting pattern, which you can get, in the bio of my other accounts, or at least in one of them. I had to turn one of them back into a personal account, then to see if they'll let me put it in the creator account. But I'm starting to realize that it is just love bombing, I think. Like, they don't actually intend for creators to make a good amount of money, but they just want you to think that you can. So they let you do it for like a few days, and then they're like, nope. Yeah. So some of us have just responded to that, like, okay, we're gonna we're gonna just rebrand, rebirth ourselves as many times as we need to. Like, this account is 1 day old and it already has 20,000 followers. We'll probably get it monetized in 2 or 3 days. Yeah. I mean, someone here says, "I'm always watching your videos. What are your predictions on future term?" Like, it's interesting that I came here to talk about cult, and then it became the military, and then the government, and now I think people just think I'm their political analyst, but I'm not going to talk to you about the Middle East. Said it a bunch. People don't get it, but I'm not. Give me a second, people. I'll be back. Grapes for breakfast. Is that what we're doing? These things that I'm trying to figure out if I can salvage. Yeah, people like those stair runners. They get a lot of love. Trying to figure out if I can make this necklace more Baba Boomy. The last time I did it, it did not go well. So I'm gonna try again. I had this one, which is very like it's just giving circus, and I need to figure out if I can make it better. So I'm gonna just add riotous more amounts of color and see what happens. Hello, thanks for loving my videos. I mean, I heard he responded to the parade by getting super mad at Keg's breath, which is amazing. I love it so much because people try to be like, "No, they were just in route step. It's a thing." And I'm like, everybody knows what an army parade is not supposed to look like. You can say whatever you want about it, but everybody knows it wasn't supposed to look like that. And I feel like all the civilians had the same experience of being like, "Ew, I don't know what I'm looking at, but I don't think this is right." Oh, it was not embarrassing, it was beautiful. The US Army really said, "We will burn down our own 250th birthday party just so you can't have it." And I could not have been more proud, especially as someone who has written 2 very critical books about the US military. Yeah, they're just so saluting with their left hand. I mean, it was just but, like, the other thing, right? So, like, Trump was sitting there being insulted, but, like, really is gonna have to have it explained to him how insulted he was. But Pete Kegsbreath knew the whole time how insulted he was getting. So, both of those things are good for me. Children of God and Jesus people lived at Washington Hall, where I worked in 1969-ish. Yep. The children of God kind of absorbed or made off with a huge portion of Jesus people and Teens for Christ. He just went around to other cults and stole a bunch of their members and ideologies and oh, crazy times. Crazy times. We're in them again. I have seen the salute, but the thing is, like, nobody gets mad about the president's salute. Like it that just started with JFK or something, and veterans all think it's stupid. Like the president is a civilian. Why is he saluting? And why are we saluting him? Like it's just silly. But yeah, he is a horrible, awful person. Why did I get into crochet? Well, you see, I was 5 in a cult, and my mom, who was born and raised in a cult, taught herself to knit when with her second baby, in quarantine with her second baby. And she then I begged her to till I was 5 and she wouldn't teach me till I was 5 and then she taught me and I think I just knew because that's how it goes with knitting cult baby too. And then a little bit later she taught us some crochet. Crochet is actually the interesting one because, like, knitting I picked back up when I was 18 after I left the call, and I have been doing it ever since. But then crochet, like, didn't touch it from the age of like 12 to 28. And then I was just like, I'm gonna crochet some clothes now. And I picked up and made a dress. And it's just like how like other people are always like, it's like riding a bike, but I didn't learn how to ride a bike till I was 12 because cults not very good on bikes, but crochet. Never forget. But I mean, I definitely think for me, there's like a comfort in always having projects and stuff to do with your hands. One, like it's just my ADHD stim, but two, like I spent so much time in solitary confinement as a child that is quite torturous. And literally, honestly, the hardest part of parenting for me is just like being in a dark room with a child waiting for them to go to sleep. Especially when they expect you to hold them, so you can't be knitting. So it's like I always have my stuff that I'm doing, but it's also just like what I like to do. Like, oh my gosh, the other day, all the people that live in my house were unexpectedly gone, and it was a weekend, and I just like sat in a pile, a literal actual pile of rainbow yarn that I just unpacked and just sat there making, like working on different things at the same time, like listening to audiobooks, and it makes me very happy. And then when I make money, I travel to other places so that I can drink their wine and listen to audiobooks and crochet in their country. Yeah, Mormons. Oh, oh, I hate these chats. I don't understand. I don't understand why I can't just see it all. Learning to knit. Yeah, you just have to like. I don't think the army or the children of God was more culty. I just think they're both 100% cults. Like, fun when people try to be like, "Oh, but you have to admit that the children of God is very different from the U.S. Army." Yeah, you're right. The U.S. Army has raped and murdered a lot more people than the children of God. Like, I don't know. I have a bit of a different opinion, I think, than a lot of the cult experts, which is like, yes, there's a spectrum, but my spectrum is like cult is just the most extreme form of group, right? So there's not like a spectrum of cult. There's a spectrum of group. And here on the very extreme end, we have cult, terrorist group, gang, and like to me, I have my 10 out of 10, and that's you going up the spectrum of group from low control to high control. And once you hit 10, like, congratulations, you're a cult. And then I believe the only difference is time, money, and impunity. US Army has had a lot of time, money, and impunity. So did the Children of God. So did Scientology. And so have more spaces have gotten as bad as they've gotten. Catholic Church, just like so. That's my kind of thing on some cults are not as extreme as others. Yeah, but not because they don't wanna be. Just they haven't gotten there yet. I'm doing something funky with this one, so okay. Figure it out later. Going on to the chapter, so yeah, you need whiskey for chapter 5. Chapter 5 is not great. Like, I've read this whole book, like, probably 100 times by now, at least 75 times before it came out, and, like, I've only read chapter 5 times. It's it's a lot to take. But there's this thing I kept getting told that I feel like people are like, on the one hand, why do we not have a full story of the children of God? I mean, literally in the 80s in Time magazine, harem photo, sex cult. And then in the 90s, we sang twice at the White House. Like, nobody has told this story because every time you try, people are like, oh, well, nope, you can't put pedophilia on the screen. Like, you can't put pedophilia in a book. And like, you can. You just got to let us do it. Those of us that experienced it. Like, oh, it's too traumatizing for the reader. Like, I don't think anything someone survived is too traumatizing for someone else to read about. Might be too triggering for a person at that particular time in their life, but it's not too traumatizing to put into existence. That is a victim blamey thing that we say to people. Um, and this is why we don't. No, I mean, the Children of God should be one of the most famous cults in America, for sure. They're the best whitewash story other than Mormons, and like they were raping children the whole time. Well, one of the things when people say, "I don't know how you wrote it," and I love to talk about this because 'cause I'm like, "Well, I didn't do it alone." I had 2 women help me write this book, and that was a very crucial part of how I did it. And then turn around and get huge criticism in the literary world because people are basically pissed that I don't deserve to have this quality of a memoir because I didn't do it by myself. Those, again, are the same people that would be like, "I don't know how you did it," if they actually read it. And it's like, yeah, because I didn't do it by myself. I had a lot of help, and it was good. It was very, like, not good. Many of us after cults and having to dissociate and grow up under complete and total emotional control, just, like, aren't very good at associating emotions with the right things. It's called improper affect, and it's a facial body expression. Most extreme example of improper affect blowing up in your face is Amanda Knox going to jail for murder for not being upset enough. Um, maybe knitting quilt lady being accused of being a psyop because she's too calm all the time. And not like, "You're scared of being tortured in South America. I was 5." That was 5 for me. That was kindergarten for me. So, um, but yeah, I have started to build a class today because I have to do book edits, and then I'm taking a knitting cult sibling to the Museum of Natural History. Um, but yeah, I did the first little snippet of in the class how to turn your story into a book, a brand, and a business. Because it's like the one thing is quite simple is that I think authors sell their books wrong. It's because they try to sell you their book and tell you about the book and how good it is. And instead, if you just give away your expertise for free, people will come buy your book. And then people will say to me, "Well, I'm not an expert like you." And I'm like, "Well, I wasn't an expert like me either. Like, here's how you do that." There is a way outside of TikTok to follow me. I am on YouTube. I'm live with them right now. I post my 2 podcast videos there and a weekly Friday, like, long form roll up of cultiness. Those are additional things in addition to all, like, these videos, but it's good to follow me on either YouTube or Patreon because, yeah, I never know when I'm gonna give up on TikTok. I thought it was this week, but gosh damn, I can just make so much money. It's hard. I do not think TikTok will go dark tonight. I do not tend to make assessments based on absolutely no data of 6 years of them threatening this. And if it does go dark, we will find each other wherever we all go after this. But yeah, I don't have too much competition in the knitting and talking about cults and bad guys space. So this is crochet, yes. Someone over here is called kintsugi, which is amazing. I love that. That's the gluing things back together with gold, right? Open discussion of human psychology and cults. Thank you. I realized that I have this thing which is called the value of the extreme story. I was born and raised in a cult that everyone agrees was a super big, super bad cult. I was a woman in the military, which everyone agrees is a kind of extreme experience to have. I was very unfortunately married to a guy who a decade later was kicked out of the army for white supremacy, and un-American will be about that. Um, and it's like, well, almost all the other cult experts come at it from the perspective of like, we're going to define cult, right? And I come at it from the perspective of like, this is my mother tongue. So tell me your stories and I'll help you find the coercive control. And as we're going to say in the musical, uh, I have my contact form to pin on this account. I don't. You can't. You can't put a link on the account unless you're a business account. And anyway, I don't have that yet. But on YouTube, I'm just called Knitting Cult Lady. On Patreon, it's Group Behavior Gal because I still haven't figured out how to change that name. But also, if you see my other, no, wait, my link just came down out of the other one too. Anyway, working on it. I mean, people right now are just like enjoying fantasizing about the apocalypse, I think. Like, I've really just had to accept this a little bit. And I'm just for the most part, I've tried to address it thinking I can calm people down, but, like, right now with the Iran stuff, I'm like, "I'm not the kind of former intelligence officer trained on and deployed to the Middle East that's going to talk to you about the Middle East, so welcome to your panic," like and, like, what how is it gonna be helpful if I say, "Yes, we're all heading for nuclear war?" Like, we'll know that when it happens, I promise. This was literally like a brief we had to give helicopter pilots in Fan of the, like, weapons that they're all the most scared of, and it was just like, as far as we know, they don't have those, and when they do, we'll all find out at the same time. And it's like, you know, we get the best intelligence predictions when we have a ton of bad stuff happening all the time. But what I can say is that I think that specifically millennials, but probably boomers too, but like specifically millennials that didn't have extreme childhoods. Like if you were allowed to read Harry Potter when you were growing up, you probably have no clue what's going on right now. And you're like, "Uh," but like those of us that grew up in extremism, even just like evangelical churchianity, like those are our people. Those are children of God level extremists in the White House, right? They want to grate the children. They want to repeal the 19th Amendment and not have women voting. They want to go back to when there were no labor laws protecting women and children. They want to harvest your babies and have you always pregnant, skinny, and right? Like they want all of that. They want to be absolute theocratic dictators. Everyone is acting like just because they want that, they can make it happen. And that is a complete misunderstanding of American government, American military, American culture, and this phenomenon called routinization, which is, I explain it this way. When a cult leader builds their thing, right? They can't run it by themselves. A cult is a hierarchical organization. It's not just leader followers, right? So when they build their thing, they can either put fellows who affirmed them on their rise to power, and then they're going to fight out those people the whole time, or they can put effective bureaucrats in place. When Brigham Young took over Mormonism, charisma by proxy through Joseph Smith's cult of personality. Brigham Young put effective bureaucrats in place. They changed it to a cult of an idea. We are the one true church, and they started bureaucrating, writing things down, making laws, regulations, processes, rules that old men were going to grill 8-year-olds about their sex lives, you know, non culty stuff. Routinization used to be the example of what made you not a cult anymore. Mormonism was and is the textbook example, except most cult experts now admit that Mormonism is a cult. Okay. So routinization doesn't necessarily make you not a cult, but routinization creates bureaucracy. Okay. Bureaucracy is the opposite of charismatic leadership. Right? You have longer to just pull. Did stop the Nazis from achieving a lot of what more of what they wanted to achieve, right? Because like when paperwork exists, you have to deal with it. And Germans have never not been bureaucratic. Okay. So America's a Cult. Wrote that book, comes out January 20th on the 1 year anniversary of us living in this particular version of the cult. But we have 250 years of routinization, right? The US Army is a cult. Wrote that book too, Uncultured, critically acclaimed. But we have 250 years of routinization, right? We could make it much easier. We could have our ammo and our weapons in the same place on a military base. We don't because we make it hard on purpose. The knitting dot cult dot lady is my account. So is knitting cult lady chats, and so is knitting cult lady says. These three accounts right now on TikTok are all three active and unclosable for a variety of reasons. And so, anyway, like partially excommunicated on both of those other accounts. And like the knitting cult lady, knitting dot cult dot like they keep flagging my videos for being monetization violations because I didn't show my book. Y'all, do I ever forget to not show my book? Ever? But I'm at they're like, violation. Now that's 15 violations. You're banned from your shop for 2 days. And then by the end of the day, they overturn the violation. They're like, yeah, you're right. You showed it. But then I just lost the whole day of sales. And then by the time I go to bed, they've done it with a new one. So I'm like, they're just going to do this till they kick me off. So I made that one not a business account. I took my shop off that one, trying to get into creator funds with that one because we have a lot of good energy there. So if I can do that, I can keep that one for all like fun political whatnot conversations. And then I can keep this one to be like the books, the devotions with Danielle, the yarn. And hopefully, I'm hoping it'll just be like agnostic to all of you because you'll just follow me when I pop up. So it's a new plan. And trying to spend more time live on TikTok. I really just like this comments thing is driving me bonkers. They're asking, and the Republican puppy is like pissed off. He's like, these kids are out of school. They're 9 years old. They don't even have jobs yet. They're so lazy. Just, I can't. We're in marriages for them already. He gets worse every day. All right. What color do we do next? It's like, do I go orange? I'm gonna go blue first. You're gonna be waiting a long time for me to be the kind of intelligence officer trained on and deployed to the Middle East that's going to talk to you about the Middle East. But I promise, when we know we're going to war, we're all going to know at the same time. I am back to mostly talking about cults, which includes the cult of MAGA, but does not include top secret assessments on the Middle East. Like, they don't we're not even allowed to, as intelligence professionals, we're not even allowed to create a made up intelligence assessment about a country that we are at war in or have been trained on under secret information because they actually understand that our brains are not like computers. I mean, mine is, but that's okay. That's neither here nor there. And that we can't actually keep what's secret and what's not secret in our brains without government switchbox. So, yeah, many a fight with many a colonel about that who wanted their unclassified Afghanistan war game. But it's also gonna just be a good battle drill for you all to be like, oh, I'm sorry. The person who calms you down is not gonna calm you down, and you're just gonna have to live through it. And like, I still don't know why anyone's taking him seriously. Like, the leaders in Iran are not taking Donald Trump seriously. He's very bad at this. But yeah, y'all, like, Iran's on the state-sponsored terrorist list. Nobody that knows anything about our relationships with them is talking to you. This is another, like, psyop thing. Like, this is also the same as the steak and lobster thing. Like, you don't have secret information ahead of time. If you do and you share it, you're either going to jail for insider trading or spilling state secrets. everyone telling you their stuff has information that's available to you out there. So, like, nobody that has information about what's going to happen in the Middle East right now can talk to you about it. The reason you all want to hear from me is because I'm a former intelligence officer trained on and deployed to the Middle East, and I can't talk to you about it. They do that on purpose. I call it the weaponization of secrets when I'm talking about cults. But this was also what was very frustrating watching everyone go into craziness about Kamala and Israel. Like, it's not how it works, y'all. And I'm not talking about people being dissatisfied with her answers. I'm talking about people being literally being like, well, her administration is already blah, blah, blah. No, no. The vice president doesn't have access to international kinetic information. Actually, JD Vance being in that signal chat was super, 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 super illegal for all kinds of reasons. Because the vice president, people really also misunderstand this about our government. The vice president is the crown prince, is Prince Charles, right? They're not the assistant, they're not the deputy, they're not the second in command. They're the crown prince. They're over there in case that guy chokes. And they don't usually like each other. And like we only hear I had to call Mr. Indian Cult Lady on it after Kamala was the vice president. And he's like, all of a sudden we don't hear about this anymore. I'm like, did you say that about other vice presidents? Were you asking about where Dick Cheney was? No, no. You're saying it about the black woman. So this is one of the things. There's like a couple things that the American public has been fooled on. One, that you get money back at tax time. And two, that that we know anything that is going on about our international relationships. None of it. 90% of what is happening with our government and other governments is classified, and nobody can talk to you about it. This is why I was judging Kamala on something else. I was judging her based on the fact that every single time she could throughout her career, she has brought up CSA. Because I think we can argue about all these other problems in America for generations. But if we could just stop 1 in 4 children being raped in their homes, I think we'd fix a lot of problems. Tons, probably all of them. And I know that I'm never going to know what those politicians, just like in a cult, the leaders are going to lie to you because they can't answer you because it's secret. So you have to judge them on other things. And you have to just hope that they share your values when they're in those secret rooms. But like, it was like, oh, or like, it was very similar to like acting like the Johnny Depp and Amber thing. First of all, acting like a 23-year-old and a 43-year-old, one of the most famous men in the world, have the same power dynamic. Gross. Second of all, the hubris to act like you know who's lying with professional actors. It's just bonkers. Bonkers. And people were so convinced. And it's just like, you don't know. You don't know what is going on with international relations. You don't know what governmental psychological operations are being played on you. And you don't know what is going on with signal intelligence with Russia. And you're never going to. So stop borrowing the anxiety from it and focus on the things you can focus on, holding your politicians' feet to the fire. Like, we were always voting for the conditions we wanted to protest in, because it was always America has gotten to a really bad place. I mean, has been a really bad place, I think, forever, but white people are finally starting to realize it. Yeah, the her debt thing was crazy, crazy. Just Ooh. It is so weird to me, like, we acted for so long, like 19-year-old Taylor Swift and 31-year-old John Mayer was not always creepy and gross and disgusting. Like, I'm so glad that Gen Z is just having none of it. Like, Gen Z, I feel like, is just ending the whole concept that adults can date teenagers and it's not gross. Mhm. And I love that. Like, even that me and Mr. Knitting Call Lady are 5 years apart. And I think that is an almost problematic age difference with power dynamic and just like experience in the world. However, I was higher ranking than he was when we met. So we had this other artificial dynamic. And it was very interesting because for the first time in a relationship, I negotiated a lot harder for what my rights were going to be because I was dating down. Um, very, very interesting. Do sell the crochet jewelry. It's just hard to get right now because all my accounts are in a variety of demonetized. But hopefully by this weekend, this account will have thinking now. I'm doing a bunch of this. I'm taking youngest knitting cult sibling, who's a trans man, to New York City next week. We're doing a knitting cult pop-up happy hour at Times Square on Wednesday, the 20th, 5 p.m. And anyway, we made a couple $100 to put toward the experience. And I also, this is how I realized, started putting into words that I have fundraising trauma and outreach trauma. Some of you may have that in like the generic cult baby experience. And this is actually talking to my mom, who she's on TikTok. She is grieving next door mama. And because the youngest knitting cult sibling is still in high school. We're 22 years apart, same mom. Uh, and they were in theater. He's in theater, and there was so much fundraising involved that he eventually quit because of the fundraising. But knitting cult mama literally like walked into the theater director, which was also definitely a cult, but and was like, "How much? What check? What size of check do I need to write so that we don't have to like." It's like MLM style, like, harass everyone basically, and it's just like, I hate it, and so I have a fundraiser, like a public GoFundMe for Culting of America, which I'm investing $100,000 in to make it, like, a very good quality book, and I just hate talking about that because it feels weird to me. What I much more prefer to do is be like, "Hey, we have that, but like if you've bought a signed copy of Uncultured from me in any way, you have invested in Culting of America," right? Like that's how I'm funding it. If you're buying one of these rainbow things from me, like you're investing in knitting cult siblings being taken from Texas to New York City. Because I love, and this is one of the things I think also some like cult survivors haven't broken down is like non-deceptive sales. Like I love selling. I'm a very weird artist that also loves to sell. I love exchanging value for whatever. This is why I feel zero parts bad about talking about Uncultured all the time because, like, I know it's a book that is a 5.0 rating on Audible and is published next to Michelle Obama. Like, I know it's a good book. Worked really hard on it and invested a lot into it. And I made it because it was the product I needed. And I think that is the product that you need. And for roughly $35, we can exchange that. And I love doing that. I hate blah, blah, blah. And even the fact that like influence and charisma are not deceptive. Being popular does not equal cult leader, right? As long as you're not deceiving and manipulating. There is, I think, a time in the journey of every cult leader where they're just a charismatic person. For Jim Jones, it ended when he was 5 and he was already manipulated. But where they're just a charismatic person and haven't yet decided to go like full supervillain. I think we can see this in Elon Musk's evolution. Like he was always a horrible, evil person in his heart. But there was like for a while that I think maybe he thought he was doing like the white guy who got all his money out of racism version of like for the greater good. Um, and then at some point, he just decided to go full super villain, and that's why I do not feel bad for anything that happens to that man. I'm like, "No, the whole world is gonna enjoy watching you fall, and you know what? You deserve it. No one made you go out and be a supervillain." Oh, yeah, it's glitching because the kids are out of school. I only have 1, but I basically make sure I always have 2. That was such a kick in the head for only child parents, man. We're like, "We're having an only child, but we know that means it's our job to make sure that she has a good social life and has friends and blah, blah, blah." And then COVID was like, "Hold my beer." Oh, man, we almost made it through without a puppy. And even then, we thought we just had, like, a liberal puppy, and then he went libertarian and then straight full Republican. It's cray. It's cray. Some of you watched his evolution. Like he used to wouldn't look at the camera, but now that he's a Republican, he's just like always trying to get on camera and fighting me about a makeup station and you know for that. I don't know. It still looks like a clown to me. I've learned though that most of the time, like somebody will love it. So I put it on like this round choker thing, but it also has a snap in the back. So you can see somebody right there. It's like, I love it. Yeah, I mean, cats are, you know. Yeah, he does know what I'm talking about. Where's the top from? Thrift store. I just went and did a very fun. So it's like because I'm making all these collars and getting back into my Tudor England period, and because the comparisons are so great, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna be like in my corset phase. Um, then I finished writing the book and I realized that this was just the beginning of my triumph from my book era. And we're going to launch the Culting America era on August 5th. Oh my God, it's going to be so fun. I think I'm going to have a super dramatic, like have the knitting cult RV behind me and then like pull down the thing and the cover and it'll have, pre-sale information and basically we'll have knitting cult lady bingo across Canada and the Pacific coast in August. It's going to be so fun. Um Yeah, I think I'm becoming a pretty good designer, and I keep joking that, like, I'll have like written all these books and have all these credentials. And I'll actually get famous for being a designer. Well, I don't know. Like AOC went and took being famous for knitting from me already, so grumpy. Oh man, all I wanted was a picture of Kamala crocheting in the Oval Office. It's okay. Um, yeah, I'm not freaking out, but also I guess one of the reasons that people keep calling me fake is like, yeah, I'm not freaking out, but I'm not freaking out doesn't mean that bad things are not coming. It just means I'm pretty sure I've already been through most of the worst things I'm going to go through in my life, except losing all the people that I love. I don't know. To teach you this very useful thing that Mr. Knitting Call Lady taught me, which was not comforting to me at the time, but he was a special operations helicopter pilot constantly deployed to Afghanistan and other places that we don't have official presence in with the most dangerous mission in the world. Meanwhile, my literal area of expertise is like how helicopter pilots are unalived in war. Um, but he would always just say, he would be like, well, it's either going to work out or it's immediately going to not be my problem. And again, not helpful to me because it would have been my problem, but helpful to me when I think about myself being scared sometimes. But also, I say this like, when you're really scared, that's where a little bit of like common sense disaster planning can come in, right? So, which the first thing I want to tell you is like, you plan for Tuesday, not doomsday, right? You cannot plan and prep for a societal level disaster. Like we're all going to be dealing with it at the same time, whether that's empty grocery shelves or nuclear war. Okay. And let's remember too that the idea that like they push one button and the whole world is eliminated is no, right. These attack large places. It's terrible, but it's the apocalypse. It is not right. Um, Right? So it's not necessarily worst case. But the thing about, so this is what we do in the military. This was my job, right? As the intelligence officer. You get the mission. You're going to go here. And then you come to my team, and my team is like, this is all the things that could go wrong. And we frame it within most likely and most dangerous, right? So the most dangerous is always kind of some version of like, yeah, zombie apocalypse, right? And everything you're afraid of, right? Or helicopters. So, and missiles, right? And it's like the reason you're going there is just to ask yourself, what would you do? So, this was kind of a few accounts ago. I was telling people, like, I'm your fairy threat mother, right? Like, you're scared of this? Okay, boom, it happened. We're at war with Iran now. What are you going to do? Right? You're scared they're gonna put your autistic son in a camp? Okay, it's happening. What are you gonna do? Right? What is your response from there? How are you gonna fight it? How are you making those connections now? What, right? Like, are you gonna flee or fight or, like, what are you going to do? And let me tell you, when I realized at some point in my intelligence career too, that like, oh, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what the most dangerous course of action we say it is, because it's not going to be what we say it is, right? So you really have to just like know um, that any training is going to help you when stuff comes down, right? The only thing you can control is how you prepare, right? So I'm going to give you my very real world example, right? So when my husband was deployed, right? And I literally, I'm sitting there, 9-month-old baby sleeping in the house, come outside to sit on my front porch and just like have a glass of wine. All of a sudden, I'm just like running through just like thousands of images and videos and just stuff that I have seen, right? And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So I just sat there sobbing and drinking the entire bottle of wine. And I just pictured that car pulling up, right? So that car is going to pull up. A black car is going to pull up. Somebody of his rank or higher is going to get out in a dress uniform, and I'm going to know. Okay. And I was like, and I can't fall apart because, again, 9-month-old baby, right? So I was like, I have 20 minutes. When I see that happen, I have 20 minutes. I'm sending 4 text messages. I'm making one phone call, and that is going to get 5 people on their way to me virtually or in person. It was like my sister who was local, my finance guy, my childcare, my best friend, and something else, right? And then I can fall apart. And then in 20 minutes, I can fall apart. And that's my disaster plan, right? And turned out didn't need it, right? But it was very helpful to me over the next 4 years of that being my life. to just kind of be like, that's what it is, and I made him make a whole, like, in the military, we call it, like, RIPTOA document. When one unit is, it means relief in place, transfer of authority. When one unit is leaving and the other unit's coming in, you have 2 weeks to hand things over, and you make all documents with, like, the processes, the passwords, the everything, right? Like, what are all the things that I don't know how to do, because you basically run the operations of our life, because 'cause I'm the liquor in our cocktails, right? And, literally a document with, like, all the finances and passwords that's in the safe that I can just hand to finance guy, right? And just, like, go through disaster planning, but then go back to the real world, right? And hug your baby that's still alive, who has a father that's still alive, and, like, look around and see that you're still in your air conditioned house on your smartphone, and, like, what do you need to do right now, right? What is your most likely? What is your, people tell me I'm not getting freaked out enough. I'm like, I'm here daily talking to you, right? Every day. We know a little bit at a time as we are going through this journey, right? So, like, you're still living in the most likely course of action. The most likely course of action is we are not going to go to nuclear war with Iran. I can tell you that much. So it's like I loved it in Lost, right? I wanna say it's the first episode of Lost where Jack says to her, like, "You get 5 seconds to just completely freak out, and then you go back to work." Um, and while I'm on this, I like to talk about emotional evocation, because that's also what I learned during this time period, is that some of us are too good at suppressing our emotions and our fear and our whatnot. Cool babies, say hi. Um, And if you haven't, like, kind of had this realization yet, right? Like, in a high control system, you are supposed to have basically no emotion or happy emotion, right? That's why Eeyore is the black sheep of the 100-acre wood cult. In the military, it's just no emotion, right? Until we say cry, right? Whether that's cry nights at church, whether that's sharing your alcoholism at AA, whether that is the 21 gun salute military, where you could absolutely lose your bearing and pound your head and scream at the moon if you want. Um, or in a sports game, cult of capitalism, right? Like, um, that's when you can express those emotions, right? And when you leave the high control system, you're probably still very, very good at expressing your emotions, but because you're not actually manipulating yourself on a very consistent schedule to get labor out of yourself, you're probably not doing that emotional release, and you actually really, really need that. Um, so one of the things that I learned was, like, yeah, I would literally sit in my car and listen to songs about, like, soldiers not coming home and just bawl my eyes out, right? And then I would literally feel better afterwards. And everyone, my husband was like, "Stop doing that." And I'd be like, "No, like, I didn't know how to explain why I needed it, but I needed it." And it's funny now because I listen to those same songs and it does like nothing to me. But anyway, so emotional evocation, that's like a cheat code for yourself while you're going through your decade of deconstruction. That's like, if you just, especially if you're a person that just, like, you're like, I have no emotions, but I cry at movies randomly. Emotional evocation, right? And, like, I can't handle children dying in movies. Like, that's my Hamilton. Oh my God. When she does that scream, right? I just can't. Just um that's good for you if you are. And we literally talk about in Culting of America, my co-writer put it in. I think it sounds a little sharp, but she's like, I literally had to have not one, but two women help me write Uncultured, in large part to help me connect emotions, right? To, like, what I'm actually feeling. When I did my TED talk, literally grown men were like, I'm standing here sobbing and you're just emotionless, like, it's crazy. We will extreme trauma survivors will laugh a lot of times when we're talking about like horrific trauma. Um, but that release is exhausting, Faith. Thank you for saying that. And this is part of cults too, right? Cults, the emotional evocation is often part of what is called a degradation ceremony, where you are required to lay yourself open for the group, right? And this is what I've realized, that emotional release is exhausting and you need to recover from it, right? And the connection, the way cults like hack connection, that's exhausting. So for me, I still experience that when I do a book club in person or even virtually of my own book, right? So I'm walking into a group of strangers who have read 13 hours and 49 minutes of the most intensive moments of my life until An American comes out. And I'm just laying myself open to their questions, right? I can control how often I do that, and I don't do it very often. In the cult, I would have to do it again the next day, right? And the next day I come home, first of all, feeling like I'm high on people. That's what I call it. It's definitely ADHD, overstimulation plus forced vulnerability, kind of. And the next day, I'm exhausted. I'm literally exhausted. When I had to record my audiobook, which is the hardest thing I've done in 5 days, and I'm so lucky that my therapist was like, you need to put 2 weeks on your calendar afterward to just be. And I was like, I felt like I was under concrete. I literally have like repeating journal entries that just say, today was really hard. Today was really hard. It was really hard. And the point is people, because that's not you tired, right? Tired, skinny, hungry, isolated, pregnant, and busy, right? Like all of those things. So it is, and we are exhausted from the last decade, right? Like Gen Z has had a once in a lifetime moment every freaking year. Um, it used to be like flashbulb moments was like the white Bronco chase. And then it was 9/11, and then it was boom, 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 right? And so it's like everyone is exhausted. And that's part of it, and that's part of where they want you, right? Cults want you. All of this is to force you into dissociation, by the way. And this is actually how I end Culting of America, is me talking about the Eras Tour and how for someone like me who did not attend, that would have been like the perfect just opening experience, right? Like, I have been a Swiftie since I was 18 years old. She has written the important lyrics to every moment of my life. I'm going to be there in extreme sensory overload for many length of hours. And in a 3.5 hour segment, I am going to go through every important and intense emotional experience of my life and back and forth because she doesn't do it chronologically, right? So we're just growing up. Now we're right. And so I leave that, right? Having had this like, and the whole way I got onto this was people were reporting. They were like, I know it was the best night of my life, but I can't really remember it all that well. And people were like, is it a cult? And it's like, well, yeah, that's a part of the identity breaking indoctrination. People feel like that very much about basic training or boot camp, right? Like it was intense and horrible, but I had a good time. I learned things and I had myself completely broken and traumatized, Um, and kind of my conclusion is like, well, we've showed you how they use all these tricks. This has always been the cult scholar concern about LGATs, large group awareness trainings, landmark EST, and anything that ends in Oni Robbins, being like they're using cheap magician tricks to make you feel like you're having religious or spiritual or life-changing experience. So not saying they all have negative intentions, but they're starting by using cheap magician's tricks on you, right? Like chanting a lot puts you in sync with each other, puts you susceptible to suggestion, also puts you out of breath, and putting you out of breath makes you all these other things. Anyone who's faked an orgasm can explain it to you. Um, and so why? right? Like, why are they using these cheap magician tricks? So I don't at the end say that like Swifties is a cult, even though I joke about it at the beginning of the book. Swiftie is an identity. An identity is not a cult. However, there's a reason that Hare Krishnas recruit outside of Deadhead concerts and other kinds of concerts, right? And it's like, it's not a problem to go have this kind of very intense opening experience as long as there's not somebody waiting there to manipulate you afterwards, right? So, I mean, you might think it's a cult, but I'm probably the expert here in both Swiftyism and cults. So people think all kinds of things about cults. Americans truly, truly, truly believe they understand cults and just not by a long shot. 9 out of 10 things people say about cults are just like, yeah, that's not, look, there's no worship of the leader. Worship is not mentioned in anyone's definition. Stop. Stop. Yeah. I've had, oh, but Mormonism can't be a cult because they do good for others. Stop. Stop. The Children of God brag that they did more charity work than the Salvation Army, which is also a cult. Like the Salvation Army is a religious cult. Blew my mind. It's in the book because I have to tell people. But yeah, being a sports fan, being a Swiftie, that's an identity. That's like being a Gemini. That's like being trans. That's like being a straight white man. It's not a cult. It's an identity. People can absolutely weaponize your identity or any idea, any kind of ideology against you. But a cult is a group. The amount of times I have to say this to people just blows my mind. Like, I have been a Swiftie since I was 18 years old. I've been a Swiftie for 20 years. And I've never once been in a group of other people who are Swifties, other than, I mean, I threw an Arab tour party and I went to the thing, right? So, like, yeah, it's identity versus cult, right? Nation of Islam. And what's the other black cult? Black Hebrew Israelites, Nation of Islam, and Nubian Nation. We're reading that book this year. Anyways, these black cults, right? They weaponize black identity. They use that us versus them. White America hates you, which is true, but they weaponize that. That doesn't make being black a cult. That's an identity. Um, No, it's not because 'cause I'm a Swiftie, it's because I'm an expert and because I did an entire 7-year research project to answer these questions that you have. You're saying it's a cult because you want it to be a cult, because you don't understand it, and also because we like to demonize things that women and girls like. The Black Panthers were not a cult, that was a movement. That doesn't mean it didn't hurt people. I think organizations often hurt individuals because they're stronger. But the difference is a cult was about manipulating people and coercing them and getting their labor. Like, so again, you can be a member of a group. Cult experts are all members of some groups. Okay. We've had to evaluate all of them. I can tell you that the US military is a cult. No, my defensiveness is not about Swiftyism. It's about you, a random person on the internet, thinking you can show up and tell me, a world renowned expert on cults, that I'm wrong without establishing any kind of expertise on your own. The fact that you think that that is acceptable, that's what I'm getting upset about, not defensive, upset. This is not acceptable. This is the death of expertise. And this is part of why Donald Trump is the president right now. Okay. If you don't know who I am, how embarrassing that you're here talking. Women don't do that, by the way. Ask me how I know you're a straight white man. Okay. Go do your homework, figure out who I am, or at the very least, fucking establish that you have some expertise on something. You have not done so. All critiques are not the same. Sit down. Yes. If you're saying you grew up in something and the next words that follow are not locational data, I generally think that was a cult. And if it was locational data, that's small town USA. Um, but if you're sitting around asking, wondering if you grew up in a cult, you probably said you grew up in a cult. Oh no, you watched me tell someone that watch this. I love it when they try to sharpshoot me with my own words, but they didn't actually listen. You watch me tell someone that I rarely call myself an expert, and I've only started doing it recently since finishing my second book because I now am. That commenter tried to quote my already published book to me, pretending like she'd read it, assuming, mansplaining, by the way, it wasn't a woman, we were trying to pretend that they knew what it was, and they didn't. And I did not call myself an expert in that book, and I called them out on their bullshit. I'm allowed to say I didn't call myself an expert in the past, and I'm also allowed to call myself an expert anytime I want because I am one. Okay. And none of you would be saying any of this to me if it was my husband sitting here, not me. So just stop. I don't play this game anymore. Like I said, I'm in the try and come for my job era. You have not written 2 books on cults. You are not the only cult expert in the world with military experience. You don't know what you're talking about. Sit down and listen or go. Nobody went out and got you, Colleen, and told you to be here, and nobody's gonna care if you're gone. If this is not helpful for you, bye. Okay? I'm not a public asset. I don't have to respond to you the way that you want. This is my space that I have created to talk about my story and my area of expertise. If you're going to be polite and respectful, you can stay. If not, nobody has to be here. Anyway, I gotta go. I got a publishing meeting. Woo! It is people without expertise that are offended by others, and especially if it's a woman. Like they just cannot stand. Oh, you know what's cute? You can't offend me by trying to imply that I'm trans, because I don't think being trans is a bad thing. But also, did you know that all of the world's most beautiful people are quite androgynous of feature? I again. This face and body been making me money my whole life. Yeah. You all think like you all still think we're in your patriarchy and you still think you can shut us down and we need your permission to exist. I promise you, I make 5 times as much money as you do, bro. And I don't have to care about what you think. And I never will again. Okay. You don't like it? Bye bye. Bye bye. I promise you that both of these pussies have more combat time and credentials than you do. And we will be here on the internet making money, stocks, and doing what we want. You have a day. Have a day. Ba-da, 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 have a day. That's going to be the bop song in the musical, by the way. Bye. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. If you are a white person, start asking yourself about how you personally can make reparations. Pay Black people more money. Stop being horrible to them on the internet. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Happy Juneteenth. Oh, musical's coming, but I still have to keep present. It's kind of a